Today is our fifth meeting for emotional harmony. Last week I had given you some sheets for analyzing childhood experiences and the resulting childhood beliefs which may have been created by those childhood experiences. Today I would like to speak a bit about three thoughts which may help us to start getting free from beliefs which we realize now are limiting our happiness, limiting our positive emotions. I think everyone by now has realized one or two beliefs which may be limiting him or causing him to have less harmony or happiness or peace or feelings of unity with other persons than he or she would like to have. And actually I think it would be useful for me to stop for one moment and give you a minute or two just to write down so that you can have in your mind something specific as we are speaking today. Write down a belief or an emotion, at least, if you can't find the belief, that you would like to get free from. An emotion and or a belief from which you would like to be free. I'll leave it. Or an addiction from which you would like to free yourselves, an attachment. Write a few, if you want to write a few. An attachment, an addiction, an emotion from which you would like to get free. Okay, I think everyone has pinpointed something. The first thought which will help us to get free is the declaration that I want to be free. I want to be free. Or I am freeing myself. That I have had enough suffering. I have been limited enough in my happiness, in my sense of peace. My relationships have been disturbed enough by this belief, by this attachment, or by this emotion. And I want to be free from this. I want to regain my inner strength, my inner peace, and my ability to love without conditions. So the idea here is that we are not free at this moment. We believe that we're free, or we believe that others limit our freedom, but the reality is that our beliefs limit our freedom. Our fears limit our freedom. Our attachments limit our freedom. We talked about the bananas, didn't we? Where we have our hand in the bottle and we're holding on to the banana and the bottle is tied to a tree and we can't get our hand out. And we think that the bottle is limiting us or that the tree is limiting us. But nothing is limiting us but our own attachment to the banana. The moment we say, I release that banana or those peanuts, I am free. So in all cases in which we feel limited, that our happiness is being limited, that our peace of mind is being disturbed by others, it's just simply that we're attached to having something to receiving something or being something which we want to be from that specific person or from that specific situation, and because we're not getting it, we're unhappy. Another example is a man holding a cat by the tail and complaining that the cat is scratching him and causing him to bleed. He's got nothing else to do but to leave the cat's tail. And so many of us are holding cats by the tail, various attachments that we have, and they're causing various problems, causing us to lose our health or to have many conflicts with other persons. And there's nothing else we have to do but just leave the cat by its tail, from its tail. So we are continuously confronted with a choice for security, which means living and thinking and emoting in the way that we have been until now, or growing, choose growth or evolution, which means change, getting free from old thought patterns, from old ways of thinking and functioning. Of this choice of growth or security is well expressed in a small parable which you will find in the sheet that you have called The River Beings. This is an excerpt from the book The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, by Richard Bach, who has also written the Jonathan Livingston Seagull and a number of other books after that. The last book is called One, which I recommend all his books. Here there is a reluctant Messiah, a Messiah who was born in the last 20 years and gets tired of his job as a Messiah. And just before he leaves, these crowds of people who are crowding around him waiting for miracles to happen, for him to change their reality and to save them, he gives them a last message. What does he say to them? And he said unto them, within each of us lies the power of our consent to health and to sickness, to riches and to poverty, to freedom and to slavery. It is we who control them and not another. A millman spoke and said, easy words for you, Master, for you are guided as we are not, and need not toil as we toil. A man has to work for his living in this world. A very natural reaction from someone living in the first three centers of consciousness. The Master answered and said, once there lived a village of creatures along the bottom of a great crystal river. The current swept silently over them, all young and old, rich and poor, good and evil, the current going its own way, knowing its own crystal self, only its own crystal self. Each creature in its own manner clung tightly to the twigs and rocks of the bottom of the river, for clinging was their way of life, and resisting the current what each had learned from birth. So we have this river, which is time, which is life, which is God's plan, which is flowing over these beings. And these beings, from the moment they are born, are taught to not trust the river and the movement and the pressure which is giving, and to hold on to whatever they can find at the bottom of the river. They're attached. They have many attachments. But one creature said at last, I am tired of clinging. Though I cannot see it with my eyes, I trust that the current knows where it's going. I shall let go and let it take me where it will. Clinging, I shall die of boredom. So here he's saying our first phrase, I want to be free. I'm tired of clinging. I'm tired of being dependent on persons and things outside of myself. The other creatures laughed and said, "Fool, let go, and that current you worship will throw you troubled and smashed across the rocks, and you will die quicker than boredom." But the one heard them not, and taking the breath, did let go, and at once was tumbled and smashed by the current across the rocks. Now what do we do? This is a very natural result. When we do let go, we are tested. Are you really letting go? Or will you cling at the first moment of fear? At the first point when things are going a little bit difficult, you'll seek again to find someone else or something else to cling on to find your security. How sure are you that you want to be free? How sure are you that you trust in me, the current, this divine current of life? Yet in time, as the creature refused to cling, the current lifted him free from the bottom, and he was bruised and hurt no more. So the testing passed. And the creatures downstream, to whom he was a stranger, cried, "See, a miracle! A creature like ourselves, yet he flies. See the Messiah, come to save us all." And the one carried in the current said, "I am no more Messiah than you. The river delights to lift us free, if only we dare to let go. Our true mark is this voyage, this adventure." But they cried, "Miracle, miracle," all the while clinging to the rocks. And when they looked again, he was gone, and they were left alone making legends of a Savior. So the message here is that the river of life, this divine flow, is just waiting to liberate us. We mentioned last week about the bird in the room. When a bird comes into the room, we want to liberate it, to catch the bird and put him up. But because he does not trust us, the bird starts to hit himself against the walls on the ceiling and bruises himself. He even could create great harm to himself because he does not trust our motives of wanting to free him. And the idea here is that life wants to free us from our ignorance and our attachment, which is a result of the ignorance of our true self, of this power which is within us, and this immortality which is within us. And it seeks to help us get free from that ignorance by various experiences. We don't trust in those experiences. We don't trust life. We don't trust God. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust other people. We don't trust the animals. We don't trust nature. And we try to create a life in which we can control everything. It's a great illusion that we can control anything, because we are really insignificant as these bodies. As bodies, we're totally insignificant. And we can walk out of here and never reach home. And it's nothing that we control can change that in life. But the whole idea of control is an illusion. And we believe that by controlling everything around us and having certain persons and having certain situations and having certain objects, that we're going to be safe. But all of those are in a process of flow and change. And one day they're here and another day they're not. And even if they are permanent, we fear that they are not. And rather than enjoying what we have, we fear losing what we have. So the message here is that by having faith and letting go, this power, this divine essence, whatever it is, life, whatever you want to call it, will free us. But the first phrase for this week is, I want to be free. I want to get free from these addictions, from these attachments, from these weaknesses, from these fears, or from this anger or jealousy, or whatever is bothering us. I want to get free. I decide to get free. Now, this is not as simple as it may appear. One would say, why do I have to say I want to get free? Everyone doesn't want to get free. Everyone wants to be free. It's not true. After about 20, more than 20, about 24, 25 years of doing this kind of work at these seminars, I have realized that a part of us wants to get free, but there's another part that doesn't. That sometimes there is something to be gained by certain persons by not getting well, or that there is often a fear of change, and sometimes, very frequently, the familiar unhappiness is more secure than the unfamiliar happiness. And especially if people have a belief in good and evil, and they believe that after every good must follow some evil, or after everything, something pleasant, there must follow something unpleasant. And I remember when I started this path, after about 3 or 4 years, when things started going quite well in my life, in relationship to how they were before I started, frequently the thought came to me, nothing has gone wrong for a long time. Something has to happen. I was not used to being well for such long periods of time. And gradually I got used to it. But it created a certain amount of insecurity that if something's going to happen, it can't stay like this. You just can't stay happy, because for me life meant frequently being unhappy. And that was familiar. And many people prefer that familiar unhappiness or conflict. We see that people who have experienced much conflict in their childhood years seek out conflict. It's like their dose, their weekly dose. Or people who have gotten used to being rejected seek out their weekly dose of rejection. It's like heroin. It's like a drug. And it keeps the adrenaline going, and it keeps the body stimulated. And it's something that we're used to, that we can become addicted to emotions and negative emotions, just as we can become addicted to substances for a certain amount of stimulation of our nervous system. Just as we can be addicted to pleasant things, we can become addicted to negative experiences. So on one sheet that you have, it says why it might not pay for me to get well, or to succeed, or to manage, or to create. These are some possibilities which we might want to look into. That if we see that we have made a decision to get free from some negative tendencies or some negative situation, and a lot of time has passed and we're not making progress on that, it just may be that there's a part of ourselves which is undermining that, which doesn't want to be well. And why would it might not want to be well? Let's look at some possibilities. One, if I get well, they may not pay attention to me anymore. I may lose their attention and their love. So some people have associated having problems with the attention which they receive from others. If as children they were not able to receive attention while they were well, and suddenly they became ill at some moment, and suddenly all this attention was poured on them, they may be programmed that in order to have the attention from my loved ones, I have to have problems. It could be physical problems or emotional problems or relationship problems or any kind of problems. One possibility is that I do not believe that I will receive the attention I need if I am well. Or I will need to undertake responsibility for my life, such as work, survival, etc. I am incapable of doing that. I have seen people create illnesses because they're not sure whether they can handle life. And by being ill or by being not well emotionally, they have a reason for not facing life by themselves. They will have people who will be caring for them and taking care for them these basic needs. Or number C, letter C, it will be necessary to tire myself. I will lose my comfort. That is, by not being well, others will care for me, and I don't have to exert myself in life. A second possibility, I can control others through my illness. Now, the word illness here, we mean also physically and emotionally. Why? Because they must serve me. If I'm ill, the others must do what I want. And secondly, they must not make me worry. And so the illness or being not well becomes a form of emotional blackmail, and in which I am able to control people around me, and they must not do anything which makes me upset because they will be contributing to my illness. And so they use this form of emotional blackmail, and it does not serve their purposes to get well, either emotionally or physically. The third possibility: others are responsible for what happened to me. So, I have been treated unjustly, and so others are unjust, whereas I am justified, correct, and good. Here we're talking about the role of the victim. When someone gets into the role of the victim, he sometimes does not want to get out of it. Because what happens? If I am the victim, you are the abuser, very naturally. If I'm the victim, then you are the abuser. And since you're the abuser, you're wrong and I'm right. It gives us a sense of righteousness. So for some people, being the victim is a prerequisite to being right, to being good, to being acceptable in God's eyes. So it may not serve their purposes to not be the victim. And so they're in a situation in which they're the victim, and they say, I want to get free, but there's another part which is undermining that process. If I get free, will I be right? Will I be correct? Will I be okay? Because it's through that role that I have found my justification until this point. So watch out to see whether there's a part in there who likes to feel sorry for himself and feels self-righteousness or self-justification by being wronged by other persons. Because we want to accept total reality, total responsibility for our reality at this point. And to see that we are creating everything that is happening in our lives. Or, since other people are responsible for what happened to me, in this way I punish them with my illness. It could be illness or it could be a life of self-destruction. I make them feel guilty. I have seen many teenagers fall into this trap and destroy their lives in order to revenge their parents, and the lack of understanding or the lack of love that they receive from their parents is their only tool for winning this game with their parents was to destroy themselves. And that could be by not studying and not doing well at school, or it could be by overeating or getting into drugs or not eating at all, getting into various patterns of self-destruction, so that I'm not well, but you're responsible for that. And because it is the one tool that the child can have toward the parent, because the parent is attached to the child's success, to the child's happiness, it's the one of the last tools he has in order to get back or to win this power game. Unfortunately, he himself is eventually destroyed through that process, though. Another possible belief which may cause someone to remain not well, although he wants to be well, is the belief that I am guilty and I don't deserve to be well. I must be punished, I must suffer. So if someone has been programmed in his childhood years that he is inherently evil or not worthy, then it's very natural for him, even though he has made a conscious decision to change his life, to have this inner guilt which is preventing a change for the better. And the fifth possibility is something which I have seen with some people. Without my illness or my problem, it doesn't have to be an illness, my problem, I am not important or interesting enough. There are some people who their communication with other people is their problem. That is, if I don't have this problem, no one will pay any attention to me. There's nothing else interesting about me to communicate to other people except for my problem. And so this also, if I don't have that, then I won't have interesting social contact. Let's look at another sheet which you have, which has various strange figures. It has 3 faces on it. It says resistance to development, change, and healing. We see that there's a small unhappy face in the center, and that it says to the right, desire for change, and there's this happy face to the right, which is the target. There are some forces which are working here in response to that desire for change. So we are that person in the center. We desire change. Okay? Now one force we see below is fear. Fear of change. Fear of something new, and also fear of how others will receive us if we change. Because we have gotten into very specific role-playing with certain people in our lives. As their child, as their friend, as a person who does everything that the other person asks us. We get into very specific roles with people. And when we think about changing those roles, then we wonder, will they accept us? Will they still love us? The fear of change. Another force is below there, resistance, inactivity, or habit. That's number one below. It says resistance. There are two kinds of resistance. The first kind is habit, that we have become used to certain thought forms, certain ways of seeing ourselves, others, life, and God. And we have certain beliefs such as I cannot, I will not succeed, I do not deserve something better. And so this habit of these old thought forms prevent change. They are like crystallized, like a crystallization which takes place in the mind, and our effort towards change is made more difficult. The second kind of resistance is the resistance towards pressure from others. That when others pressure us to change, when we have people around us saying, you must change, you're not okay as you are, there's a part of us which resists, even though we may agree. We may agree deeply within ourselves that we too want this change, or we believe in this change. But there's another part which resists, because we do not like being told what we're going to do. And we must realize that this is not freedom. Many people who have difficulty in their adolescent years develop a rebellious kind of behavior, or in a behavior of resistance towards authority, believing that they are free. Yesterday I heard someone in one of the groups saying, because I had so much pressure to study when I was in school, now in my work I leave everything to the last moment, and I have anxiety until the last moment because it's in my mind. And why is he leaving it until the last moment? Because that's freedom. He doesn't have to do it. But in the end he does it. And until he does it, it's churning in his stomach. I haven't done it, I haven't done it. So one part of him is preventing him from doing it, because then he is free. It's a quotation, in quotations. But the other part is in this constant state of anxiety that he hasn't done it. And so we do a lot of things in our life because we think that's freedom. Smoking is freedom. Not doing what other people want us to do is freedom. Eating chocolates is freedom. We have associated a lot of things, not only with pleasure, but with freedom. I'm free to do it. But do I want to do it? Am I free not to do it? You see? So we think often that we are developing a sense of freedom when we don't do what others want us to do. But that's also being programmed, because I am programmed not to do what others want me to do. And I am as enslaved in that programming as I am in the programming that I must do what the other asks me to do. Freedom is being able to actually choose when I believe it to do it, and when I don't believe it not to do it. So it's a mistaken freedom, this type of resistance, when it's a blanket type of reaction that I just never do what anyone pressures me to do. Real freedom is being able to choose independently as to whether someone is pressuring me or not. Be free not to do it, and to be free also to do it. The third aspect, which is an obstacle towards the desire for change is desire for other things. That we desire change, we want to make changes in our lives, but we also are attached to other things for our sense of security. So we think that there are a number of forces here. I want to make a change. There's the fear of change. There's habit, the power of habit. There's resistance towards others who may be forcing me to change. And there's desire for other things which prevent that change. Right? So the first phrase for this week is, I want to be free. And you have all written down something from which you want to be free. So let's use that phrase this week. I want to be free from this way of thinking. I want to be free from this emotion. I want to be free from this attachment. No one says I have to be free. I'm not doing this in order for other people to accept me. I'm doing it because I want to do it. I choose to get free from this. The second phrase for this week is that there was a time when I did not have that. Seems strange. Huh? There was a time when I did not have that. What do we mean by that? Life is a continual evolution of addictions and attachments and desires. Once, when we were little children, we were attached to dolls and small toy cars and various games. And if someone came and took one of our dolls or one of our games or toy cars, we were devastated. There was pain, there was crying, it was the end of the world. And if someone said to us then, you know, after a period of time, that's not going to be very important to you. You won't need that. Our belief was they're crazy. Is it possible for that doll or that small car not to be important for me for the rest of my life? That was our perception. And the day came when we just threw it away. It wasn't interesting anymore. And we got a new toy or a new game. And then it was to play sports. Or then eventually it was to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And that was the end of the world if we didn't have that specific girlfriend or that specific boyfriend. And then eventually it was to have a motorcycle, and then to have a car, and then that wasn't so important, and then it was to have a family. And we've gone through a whole evolution of desiring certain things, obtaining them, and then realizing that that's not the total happiness that we've been looking for. And there's something else, and something else, and something else. We have experienced happiness and fulfillment in our lives, or peace, without a number of things which we have at this moment. This is a very logical thought. It's not a spiritual truth. For example, there was a time when I did not have my partner, my wife. I remember a time when I did not have my wife and I was okay. So why should I believe today that if tomorrow, for some reason, my wife is not there, that I won't be well? I have the experience. I don't have to believe some spiritual truth that I will be well. I remember. It's a memory in my mind. At some point, I did not have this car or this object or this house, and I was all right. Life was there. Experiences were there. So what happens is that we obtain something, and which we didn't have before. We have the experience of being all right without that, but we forget it. And our mind becomes totally clouded, and we say, if I don't have that, it's total destruction. Life has no meaning. There can never be any happiness without that. Now, this may seem strange, but it's logical. Think about it. It's very logical. There was a time when we didn't. The only thing we had from the beginning was our parents. It's one of the last things we're attached to after we grow up. Everything else we obtained at some point, and we can remember a period of our lives in which we did not have it. and we were all right. So when we see that we're attached to a specific person or a specific thing or situation, one thing that we can do in order to weaken that attachment is to remember that there was a time when I did not have that. And remember that we were all right, if we were all right. Maybe we weren't. Everyone has to remember that for himself. So the second thought for today is that there was a time when I did not have that. That may not be applicable to all situations, and it may not be a thought which helps everyone. So each person, I will give you a buffet of various thoughts each week, and each will take from that buffet the thoughts which help him. Memory is an important thing in the spiritual growth process. We lack memory. We forget things. We forget mistakes that we make continuously, and we continue to desire things which have caused us pain a number of times in our lives. We continue to believe that our happiness is dependent on external things, even though we have learned that hundreds of times that it cannot be dependent on that. We forget easily. And so remembering that there was a time in which we did not have something to which we are deeply attached at this point may help weaken the fear of losing that. I'm not suggesting letting go of anything. Whatever life allows us to have, let's have it, and let's enjoy it, and let's use it. Let's stop fear losing it. Stop fearing losing everything. And not sacrifice our values to have it. If I have a job which for me seems unethical, or it doesn't give meaning to my life, let me have the faith that I can find something which has meaning in my life. Two things. Let's not fear losing what we're attached to, and let's not sacrifice what is important to us in our lives out of insecurity. The third thought for this week is that there will be a day when I won't have it. No one likes this thought. I like it. It helps me a lot. I've had the very opportune experience to guide a number of people in their death experiences. In the role that I've been playing in the last year, a number of people who were ready to die have called me the last days. And experiencing the death of other people have helped me, has worked as a filter in my life for seeing what is important and what is not important. Seeing one person one day and then the next day that person is not here quickens within me the realization that we are here temporarily. If you haven't realized that, let's realize it, that no one who is here will be here in another 50 or 60 years. It's just a few of the younger members of the group. What if we put 80 years? No one will be here. All of these bodies will be under the earth. All of these bodies will be food for worms and for trees and for other beings who will then use those materials to create their bodies. So we are temporarily here. It's silly then to waste our lives seeking material objects. It's silly to waste our life seeking fame or recognition from other persons, because that which will enjoy those objects or that which will receive that fame is doomed to die. It's doomed towards destruction. There is a consciousness in that body, however, which is not doomed to destruction, which is doomed to eternal life. And that character I will take with me. I won't take my objects, I won't take my money, I won't take other people's respect and esteem. I will take my character. I will take my tendencies. my fears, my happiness, my love, all of those qualities of my character I will take with me. So what is it worth doing with my life? Working on my character, purifying my character, getting free from negativities, getting free from egotistical tendencies which cause unhappiness to myself and to others. That's the riches which would be worthwhile accumulating in this life. Positive character traits. To work on myself. So the third thought for this week is that someday I will not have that. But it doesn't mean I don't have to have it now. Everything is fine to have. But to not develop an intensive attachment to that. That someday I won't have my wife. Either I will leave or she will leave. And if I had a child, someday I will not have that child. Either the child will leave or I will leave. And this building someday will not be here. And Miranunda will not be here. And everything will not be here. So, to realize that we are here temporarily. Life is temporary in the physical body. And we come here to learn. And not become attached to the forms and the objects and the temporary forms which the beings around us take, and to love the essence in those beings, the spiritual consciousness which is in those beings, and not the body. Doesn't mean we don't have relationships with the body, with the other person, but that's not the focus of the relationship. The focus is that consciousness which is behind that body and that personality. So the third thought for this week is that there will be a time when I will not have that to which I am attached. There are three thoughts for this week concerning our attachments. I want to be free. I've suffered enough under this attachment. There was a time when I did not have it. If that sticks here, it may not. It may be something that you had. The body, you had the body from the beginning. So you may be attached to our body. And there will be a time when I will not have that. If we can just pass our various attachments through these screens, these filters, we may be able to weaken them and make these attachments preferences. We're not interested in becoming without preferences. We want to know what we want in life. Preferences give us a direction, give us a motive, a goal in life. But for it to be a preference, in a strong preference, I will give all of my energy, all of my time, all of my love to creating that. But if it's not created, I can accept that. I don't feel insecure. I don't feel unhappy, that I will not be well. That's a very difficult combination. There are people who have simply closed into themselves and don't make any effort to create what they have come to create in life. Other people who try to create but have anxiety and antagonistic feelings, stress in trying to create it. That quality of working and creating and trying to change ourselves and life, but being able to accept the results at every moment is an ideal which is very difficult to master, but it's what each person really needs to master. Because we have come here as instruments of the divine, as instruments of a divine power, and we don't have the right not to use that. And there's a parable in the Bible which says that the master gives 2 talent, it says, which is talents. It's the same word. 2 talents, or it was a piece of coin then, to one person, and 5 to another, and 10 to another. And those who had 5 doubled his, and he who had 10 doubled his, and he was given 1 hid his. He hid the 1 talent that he had. And he who hid his the master took that from him and gave it to the others, and gave to the others power over even more money or more talents. So, or Christ cursed the fig tree, which was not producing figs. Repeatedly we get the message in the Bible that we are here to produce, we are here to create. Man is a link between the divine power and the material world. And as a link, he is a transformer which receives spiritual energy and transforms that spiritual energy into words, thoughts, and actions which change the vibratory quality of the physical world, change his own life, and changes the life of society around him. We have an obligation to create and to function, but we need to be able to accept the results at every point, not to have anxiety about the effort. Okay, so I don't want to say anything else today. We can go on to your questions or thoughts, especially if you have any questions about the work that you did last week on the childhood experiences or on today's discussion. Are there any questions or thoughts about the work we're doing at this point? Daniel.
List of childhood experiences. Maybe you mentioned it last week, but I didn't hear it. What's this B and the R?
The B is the beliefs and refers to the list of beliefs which you have also. So finding, for example, if looking at number 1, was there someone who got angry at you, scolded you, rejected you, or accused you? Who and when? We see that the beliefs that could have been created by that experience are numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And the R is the roles. I have not given you yet a list of roles. I will eventually, I hope. But as of now, you have the list of experiences and the list of beliefs. And I had made last week the process of getting free from childhood experiences, but I don't see it now. I can't find it. I'll give you next week. Other questions about what we're doing at this point? Okay, if there are no questions, then we can break up into our groups. You have another question, yeah?
Yeah, okay, so we're meant to make our own list also of childhood experiences.
Yes.
And I suppose we have to determine what beliefs.
Try to determine which beliefs were created by those experiences. And now, what is the result of those beliefs in your daily life? What is the consequences in your daily life? Ferris?
Well, I have a question about the 3 thoughts that we were talking about today, where the person will develop the desires that they have. They start with a toy or a small car, and they move to the bigger toy, and so on. And eventually, you will leave it behind, so there's no real essence in these toys. But is there any good thing that would fit this picture in the development, at least?
Yes.
Wanting more.
First of all, did you finish? No. Yeah. First of all, we develop many abilities in trying to obtain those. We develop our mind and our bodies in many ways. We cultivate many abilities and talents in trying to obtain all of those things. And so we become more effective instruments of the divine on earth. It's someone who has not developed those abilities may have contact with a spiritual power within him, but he has no way of expressing that because he has not developed his abilities as a personality in the material world. And that's why it's usually useful for someone to have conquered the material world before he starts a spiritual process. I see sometimes when young people get into this path too early, eventually something changes in their life and they feel the desire to go out into the world again and to try to prove themselves. And that's very useful. And it would have been better perhaps if they had done it from the beginning, to prove themselves, to be able to function in the material world, so that when we then connect with spirit, We can be effective organs of that. The second is that by obtaining and going through one desire after the other, we eliminate all the possibilities of external happiness. If I am here today, it's not because I started out as a very philosophical person, but because I eliminated the possibilities. I had everything that society said I should have to be happy. And I mean, I didn't leave any corners overlooked. So it leads towards a more stable than spiritual process, because there's no more doubt in my mind that there's nothing out there for me. I'm sure of that. Not because I read a book about it, and not because someone told me that, but because I experienced it firsthand. I had it, and it wasn't giving me what I wanted. It may give to others. I don't reject it, but it wasn't giving to me what I wanted. So I think there's two advantages. That one is that we developed abilities, and secondly that we actually eliminate all those possibilities and can go on much more clearly then. Yes.
Just another question. You said that we are here to create. Now, if everything is temporary, so what is the point of us creating anything?
It's a matter of development. Through creating, we evolve. The creating is a process. Until we are able to create the perfect idea, which is within us, that heaven, that idea of heaven, until we are able to manifest that on the material level, that's a reflection of our development. Our creation is a reflection of our development. So it just serves more as a mirror than anything else. The earth is going to be destroyed, and the sun is also going to be destroyed in about 5 million years. I remember a joke that I heard once. It was a conference of scientists, and one of the scientists gave a report on the fate of the sun, and he says the sun will be exploding in about 5,000 years. And at the end of the conference, someone raised their hand and said, "Did you say that the sun will be exploding in about 4,000 years?" And the scientist says, "No, in about 5,000." "Ah, I thought it was 4,000." Or is it million? I can't remember. Anyway, the sun is doomed to be destroyed, and so is the earth, as all stars and their planetary systems. So, yeah, from the point of creation, it doesn't really matter. But it's the evolution that we have in that process of doing it. Yes?
So back to what we were talking about before, is it important to try to fulfill our desires in the respect of leaving stone, not leaving stones unturned? Or is it
If it's a choice between suppressing and fulfilling, it's better to fulfill. If it's a choice between transcending and fulfilling, it's better to transcend. It just depends on whether we can really say, I don't need that, or whether I'm suppressing it. Usually suppressed desires have the way of working their way up to the surface after a few years. So each person will have to look into themselves. Am I suppressing that, or have I really overcome it? Each person has to decide that for himself.
Go to town. I mean,
with,
one way, is it?
with discrimination. Well, you have to have discrimination, because if we have fulfilled the desire hundreds of times and it's only created problems for us, it takes a little bit of intelligence. I mean, how many times do I have to hit my head against the wall and feel guilty and feel unhappy and destroy my health and destroy my relationships to have one more pleasure? I mean, it takes a little bit of logic also.
I mean, isn't that a sense that the more you have, the more you want? Sense that.
Yeah. Well, there is a process of getting too much. I've seen some people stop smoking cigarettes by smoking about 3 packs a day for a week, until they get sick, and then creating a negative experience. There's also that process. But I think the best process is memory. Now remember, how many times have I done that? Has it given me anything really worthwhile in my life? That memory is the process. We've done so many things in our lives. And we continue repeating them and repeating them, repeating. We don't have good memory.
How do you appreciate it?
Ask that question. Make this question a filter before I do anything. Have I done this before? What was the result? Did I feel well? Did I feel guilty? Did it create conflict? Did it help me in my health, in my relationships? Or did it create problems? Was it an illusion that I would find my happiness there, and in the end I found only suffering?
Maybe this time I will make it.
Maybe this time I'll make it. Try it again. Try it again and try it again until we really are sure. Is there another question?
Yes.
Yeah.
You said that we can we have to let go and not become attached.
Well, it's our
What if
choice.
Okay. What somebody if somebody just becomes attached to that kind of thing, like spiritual life? Like when I come here, for example, personally, I feel when I listen to the lecture, I feel like certain light coming in me, and I relax and I feel love, and
Mhm.
then I get very attached to that,
Yeah.
and I want to have it all the time, and it gets sometimes my relationship with people becomes impossible because I feel they give me reflections of fear and the other part of myself, which is which I don't want it, and I become attached to being with people that they always speak like that, and they always keep reminding me that I must stay on that track for trying to better myself. So I get very attached to that, and I suffer again.
Yeah.
Because I think
Every attachment, even spiritual attachments, create suffering. We need to see this process of walking up a stairs, like walking up a stairs. When I'm walking up a set of stairs, I'm on the step number 5, which says I depend on material things for my security. And then I put my foot on step number 6, which says I depend on certain stimuli outside of myself, spiritual stimuli outside of myself for feeling security. And I do well to take my foot off step number 5 and to put it on step number 6. But at some point, when it's time for me to go to step number 7, in which it's time for me to have an inner source of faith and light, and not depend on the spiritual stimuli which will come from a book or from another person, then it's time for me to take my foot off of that. But I can't do that when I'm on step number 5. So it's an attachment. At some day you will get free from that attachment, but it may not be time now. You will choose something else. You will choose other attachments which you have, see? And then as you become more established there, you will leave that and you'll go on to the next one. So when we put our foot onto a new step, we become attached to that. We think that all our happiness depends on that. And gradually remove our foot from the lower step and we put it on the higher one, but then we need to be on 2 steps at each time, you see. And so we pull that one and we go on to the next one. And it's a process of evolution. And there are spiritual attachments also. But the thing is, if that's what needs to go now, probably not. You'll step on that step for a few years, then be sure of yourself, you won't need that, and you'll go on to something else,
it can't be preferences because I feel like Alexandra, especially I prefer to be with people who have the same, like me, spiritual. And I feel, okay, I can't confront other people, I can't be with other people, but I feel bored, I feel like losing my time, and it's an attachment this.
Oh, no.
Because my husband and all the friends are not like this, are not.
Well,
But I prefer, I feel better. I can't choose.
I remember well that situation. We have the right to create the social environment which suits us. Our family, we don't have the right to change. Our husband, our children, our parents, they're ours. That's for a lifetime. And so whatever we are given there, we accept and work with. We have, however, the right to change our social situation to the degree that we can. So the idea here would be create as much as possible the environment which you desire and need without creating too much conflict. Some conflict will probably be there, too much conflict with those who are around you at this point. But when you cannot, connect with the others. Don't sit there bored. Connect with them. You see? Since you're not going to leave, connect with them. Either leave or connect. You see? When you cannot change it, accept it and work with love.
But you have the right to prefer.
You have the right to prefer and to create the environment that you love. Yeah, of course.
You said just the social gathering, but your husband no. Why?
Because that's a vow that we take. It's not by chance. When we take that vow, I'm talking about if we take a vow. A vow is a vow. It's a promise that we make. It's our word is given. When we're having just an informal relationship, we don't give our word. We say, well, I'm trying. I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to marry you.
I didn't go to the church, but we did it, just the two of us. We made a vow between us, you understand? So
That
we
vow,
didn't make the vow.
it's just, there's much more importance must be given to a relationship when that vow is taken, whether it's in the church or not. Doesn't make any difference. Don't tell it to the priest. But the fact that you say, yes, I decide to be with you for the rest of my life, that's a word. A word is given. Unfortunately, in today's society, one's word doesn't mean a lot. In old times, a person's word was enough. You didn't even have to make a written contract. He gave his word. It's finished. That he would rather die. You understand? There's a certain power to the word, and that's why in Greek, and even in English, in the Bible, it says everything was created through the word. The word is a power of creation, and one should have very good reasons not to keep that word. Now, if the other person is abusing us, if he's harming us physically, if he's cheating on us, then there is some good reason, perhaps, to not keep our word.
He's doing it to himself.
No, I don't think it's enough. There's some lesson in that I have the other person for some lesson. If I just keep running away every time something gets difficult, I say, I'm going to be with you, and then tomorrow he changes, and then, well, I don't like it, I think I won't be with you, I'll be with someone else. Then I'm not learning lessons. Now, I don't want to be absolute. I can't be absolute because life has taught me that there are no absolutes. Of course, there will always be some exceptions to some things. But in general, it's not to be taken lightly. That didn't happen by chance. There's something I have to learn by being with this person.
I've asked myself and I can't see what I
You
have
can't
to
see
learn
what.
from his problem.
Try today in the group to see. There are many possible lessons. Try to see in the group today what that lesson could be. Yeah. Anything else, Ferris?
Just one last brief question, follow up on what Siobhan was saying. So in other words, it is actually more important, there's more essence in the lessons than in the final lifestyle that one would lead, that one person could live,
Yeah,
that has very pleasant relations.
yeah.
Because another scenario where things aren't so pleasant, but there's
You may learn a lot more. I've received letters from prisoners in America who have really found God by being in prison. Wonderful letters, really inspiring letters. But they were murderers and rapists. So God works in strange ways. He has brought those persons to Him by confining them completely. So we have to sort of get free from our limited ideas of how someone may evolve. It's very strange. When I started out this path, I had a very cliche idea of what it means for someone to grow spiritually. But now I see that it's something which is happening in very strange ways and in very different ways for each person.
I was going to going to say that now, are you saying that the attachment itself is a bad thing?
Oh, it becomes a bad thing at some point. At some point, it's
Surely
not
that's
useful.
what we attach to.
And when? Because something which we became attached to in the past may have been very useful,
Yeah.
and now may not be useful.
But isn't there sort of a supreme attachment? There's an attachment to God. Or
Yeah,
attachment to,
yeah.
That's the supreme attachment is there. You
That's
can't
with
necessarily
it-
get rid of it. We just have to change the object of attachment.
Right, changing the object of attachment.
Solve it.
But when we transfer God from out of ourselves into inside of ourselves, and that attachment also stops, because we have what we're attached to. The attachment is created by a sense of separation. And I will be desiring you as long as I'm separate from you. And I will be desiring God as long as I believe God is separate from me. So that is one of the last desires. But at some point when we realize that unity with God, even that we become fulfilled and desire falls away. Because we're there, we experience that unity. Okay, let's close the cameras now. Now I spoke to...